Hello, Spotify and Anchor and Apple Podcasts and Breaker, and we're going through the whole list. Buckle up. I'm just kidding.
Brought to you by Raid Shadow Legends.
No, never, unless they offer. In which case, absolutely, give me cash. Yeah, welcome back to Tabletop Recap. I am your host, Hunt. We also have the big boy of a Chungus here today, Big Boy Chungus.
Hello.
Yeah, and today we are reviewing Hallow's End. Hallow's End is a independently written, like, third-party Halloween one-shot for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. We worked it into our Descent into Avernus campaign, which is still ongoing, and we kind of just never reviewed it. Like, we did our recap, and we said it was fun, but we never, like, did a review of the whole, like, one-shot, which is something that I've been wanting to do after full playthroughs of published things. We didn't do it for the Theocracy because that was just something a friend wrote, so that was different, but this was a very fun little adventure. I don't remember what website we got it from. It was like a British website.
Yeah, I had to, when I paid with my card, I had to run it through a converter system that changed it from USD to pounds.
Paid in pounds. But yeah, so if you just search D&D 5th edition Hallow's End, you'll get it. It's basically a Halloween. It's about a Halloween celebration that isn't Halloween, and it's more like a fall festival kind of thing. There's fun and games, but there's also zombies, sort of.
Yeah.
Pumpkin zombies, which I thought were pretty cool. So you DM'd it. You start this off for us,
All
bud,
right.
pal.
So, for those of you who are there, when we started this one off, we worked it into our Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus campaign, where the players just took a break from the main storyline to enjoy the Hallow's End Fall Festival. And it starts off with the players getting into a...
Do you have the list of events for us and their times?
Yeah.
It's like there's a fun table in it that tells you what each part and how long it should take.
Yeah, so the session should last about 3 hours, with starting with the arrival, in which our adventurers make their way to Hallow's End. Do you want me to include the times as well?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Which should last about 15 minutes. The Foreshadows, which is where players will familiarize themselves with the locals, the Foreshadows being the local inn, which should last about 20 minutes. The festival itself, in which they enjoy a brief moment of relaxation, also 20 minutes. And then the Horde, in which some friends arrive, quote-unquote friends, mainly enemies, again, 20 minutes long. Then you have the Siege at the Shadows, where the players and the other NPCs barricade themselves in the Foreshadows Inn and hold off a horde of zombies, or pubkins as they are called. And then a Grave Mistake, in which a fun maze puzzle is undertaken by said party. And then finally the Siege at the Shadows is about an hour long, and you'll understand why in a minute.
Yeah, it was a while.
The Grave Mistake lasts about 20 minutes, and then finally the Reckoning, in which the big bad evil guy is fought, usually lasts about 35 minutes. So overall, that adds to about 3 hours worth of fun.
Yeah, it's a fun PDF. Our party actually really enjoyed it, and they were like, sequel. So there might have to be a squeakquel in the future. Alvin and the Chipmunks style. For sure. But, so get into it. You were the one that DM'd this outing, so I'll let you run on in. It's got some cool art. I want to say that. I really like the art of the pumpkin, which are like the Halloween zombie creatures. They're jack-o'-lantern zombies, so they're like zombies with jack-o'-lanterns on their head, and there's vines coming out of the jack-o'-lanterns that like move the bodies.
Yeah.
PUMP-KIN. I thought it was a very cool name.
Pumpkin. I love it.
Pumpkin.
All right, so the session starts with the players receiving an invitation to the Hallow's End Festival. And as the DM, you can set this up however you want, either by chance or by intention. And the players are brought to the festival via a rickety pumpkin-shaped carriage with one other person inside. Now, this person's name is Casper. Yeah, like the ghost.
Oh, by the way, this podcast is probably mostly for DMs. I just thought I'd mention this episode is more of a DM episode. If you want to play this, it's probably going to get spoiled for you.
Yeah, spoilers ahead. Spoiler warning. You have been warned. Get on with it. And Casper is the go-to guide for the festivities. You can either stay with him if you want, tell him to go away if you don't want him to, but he's just there to kind of help.
And he was actually very helpful for us because there's one section where the players are just supposed to play a bunch of festival games, and our players were like, "No, we don't want to play any games and do stuff." And
fine, Casper wants to play it. He wants to earn prizes.
Okay, well, Casper will do it, and then he'll get a prize, and then they'll be like, "Oh, there's prizes. We can get stuff. Okay, we're just greedy little goblin players." Having Casper actively partake in stuff in front of them can motivate them to do the same. Just a fun tip.
Yeah, I always love using... I don't like to give my players direct hints. I like to have the world kind of direct them if needed. So if they don't want to do something or don't know to do something, I'll be more than happy to have an NPC do something as an example, like, oh, maybe you should give this a try, or this is probably an easier thing to do. Like, remember when we used slobber chops in the Horde of Zombies to like, hey, the zombies aren't as dangerous at this moment?
Yeah, in Descent into Avernus. I kind of miss having Slobber Chops around. He's still alive. It's just the player that he's with isn't around, so he isn't around.
Yeah.
And you would always use him to give them hints that they would ignore.
But yeah, like Casper the same way, if you're not comfortable with doing something, or if you don't know if it's worth doing, look at Casper. If Casper's doing it, it's probably a good time.
And yes, he is... There's obviously a friendly ghost reference, of course.
But the first time you meet Casper, he literally says, and I'm quoting, "Gee Willikers, I sure am excited for tonight."
Imagine unironically saying, "Gee Willikers."
Costumes, treats, parties, drinks. What's not to love about the night of wayward souls?
All right, leave it to Beaver.
Which is an alternative name for Hallow's End.
Yeah.
Casper then eats candy from the bowl in the carriage. Now, each carriage has a party bowl of complimentary candies that everyone has access to. And the one thing that disappointed me about our session was no one wanted to eat as much candy as they could.
No one had a single piece. They took some gumdrops from the gumdrop lady or whatever. They wouldn't touch the candy at all. So we don't know how much fun that is because our players refused to take any of it.
And there was no way that I could give a hint like, oh yeah, this is fun. Sometimes it gives you helpful perks. Sometimes it gives you a non-lethal, what is the term? It gives you like a cool visual aid.
They were like, nah, we don't want to have fun, boy. And then I was like... So they chose not to do half the stuff and still loved it at the end, which should tell you how fun this is, honestly.
All right. So it is encouraged that the players, whether you're doing this as a one-off with throwaway characters or if you're including this in a larger campaign.
It can easily fit into a larger campaign because we did it and it was so smooth and fit so perfectly.
But the module encourages your players to be in some kind of costume that isn't their everyday clothing. My stand refused to do it because he's a prude.
Yeah.
But Corvus dressed up in, as we call it, scale face.
Yeah, to be my stand, he got beat up. So if your players choose racist costumes, even if it's against fantasy races, just beat him up. Just have him get beat up.
And Guinevere, I think, got the most props for this because she actually did wear a legitimate costume. She dressed up like a dragon queen.
Yeah, pretty dragon, pretty fairy dragon kind of thing going on.
So the players, they're role playing, talking to Casper, eating their candy, and then they arrive at the actual town where Hallow's End is being held, and they are dropped off at the Four Shadows Inn, where they greet a stout human woman by the name of Mira. Now, Mira is the innkeeper, and she is kind of the hostess for the whole event. She typically doesn't venture outside the inn, but she greets all the new party goers. She tells people little bits of story and information about how the holiday got started, and she pretty much just keeps the ball rolling for everybody. She tells the players when they first arrive, "Greetings, one and all. Welcome to Hallow's End on this, the Day of Wayward Souls. May I see your tickets? Thank you, thank you. Take a drink and head this way. Our Hallow's End history session is about to start."
Yeah. If your players don't want to sit through the history session, give them a reason to, because it's very relevant. Very relevant.
This is one of the things that I like about this one-off is that it does not give you just exposition for the sake of having exposition. Like, everything is so simple and so easy to swallow, but if you miss it, you will be lost.
Every single bit of lore and world building in this has 100% a purpose within the story.
Yeah, and there's not a lot. So if your players don't want to listen or don't care to listen, it's on them.
My recommendation would be the festivities don't start until the history lesson is over. So there's no one's booths are open until it's over. So it's either sit there and do nothing or listen to it. And they'll probably pick listen to it unless they angy.
Yeah, exactly. And so Mira gets everybody a drink, so everyone gets a little beverage before they get started, and then she just tells them the story of Hallow's End. And you want me to go through it real quick, or do you just want me to summarize it?
Not the full thing. Give us a summary there with the pumpkins and stuff.
Yeah. So basically, a long time ago, the town where Hallow's End is celebrated was attacked by otherworldly forces, or as they say, forces from beyond the grave. And then they solved the problem by using a unique type of jack-o'-lantern candles to ward off the evil spirits. And so once a year they celebrate by putting out the candles and celebrating the safety of their holiday. It's just a day that, hey, the evil spirits are gone. Let's
celebrating the vanquishing of undead and evil spirits. And stuff.
I can't talk. I'm still a little under the weather.
Yeah, it's all good. Plus, it's been a while.
But
we need to start doing these right after we play them.
Well, yeah, whatever. Oh yeah, and so it's just a big celebration they do once a year to celebrate the vanquishing of evil spirits. But as you guys were going through this earlier, you noticed that a couple kids ran off with some jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah, and I guess they kind of just don't believe the story, which is very odd in a world where undead and demons and evil spirits are very provenly real. But whatever, kids are dumb.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts. So then the festival and all of its festivities commence, and this is where the players are really supposed to take advantage of the games, where they can actually earn prizes that they can use later in the story. In fact, with our Descent into Avernus campaign, there's one item that has been extremely helpful with our parties so far.
Yeah, the goblin puppet's been helpful, and the balls of splashing have been helpful as well. So yeah, like, just to give examples of some games, there's like one, it's basically whack-a-mole, but they don't have the technology for whack-a-mole, so it's like a gnome with a goblin hand puppet, and they put it up through holes, and you hit the puppet, and they say ouch every time, because you're just hitting someone's hand.
Yeah.
And if you win, you get the puppet. Yay! And it is a magical item that can cast fear on small children
and animals.
And the bandables. Ooh, you're rubbing off on me.
So, yeah, that's one of my more favorite games. But there are several food and drink items. We'll start from the top here. So, for food and drink, there are chickens on a stick. Not chicken legs, not chicken thighs, whole chickens on a stick. And it even says that if you haven't eaten too much of this, you can use this as a simple bludgeoning weapon.
Big boy.
This was the thing that my stand Balasar, ladies and gentlemen, As soon as he heard entire chicken on sticks, he thought, nom.
I like to imagine them with their heads and feet still on them. No crap. That's how I imagined them the entire time. I was like, they got the heads and feet.
Then you have the toffee apples, which is a sweet, savory dessert, but when you take a bite out of it, you are unable to speak for 1 minute because your mouth's full of sticky caramel.
Just a fun little thing. Really inconsequential, you know.
I think in our story, Casper bought Guinevere one because they were kind of like on a date, and he took a bite out of it and was like,
yeah, that's how we had reasoning for him to give them tickets, because his date bounced and he asked Guinevere out. They were best buds.
Then we have Nathan Pinneedle's Candy Shop. And this is the one that made me mad because in addition to the
free candy
gumdrops, this guy's literally just giving out candy that can give you various buffs and debuffs. More buffs than debuffs, but even still, just the random fun facts of it.
Yeah, they were all like, do you want free candy? And the party was like, no. And he'd be like, it's free candy on Hallow's Eve, a time for candy. And they were like, no. But at least they got the gumdrops, and the gumdrops also have various effects. They've never gotten a super positive one from a gumdrop because they just roll like crap.
Yeah.
They basically, every time they've had a gumdrop, they've actually given them to other people, and they've just been polymorphed into a orc or kobold or something. Yeah, you roll for the effect for the gumdrop, but I think the candy's more specific. Like, you know what you're getting more.
Yeah.
After you've done it once, then you know, like, oh, this next one is going to do that. But the gumdrops are more random. They're like they're more like Bernie Bott's every flavored beans, if that's what they're called. I don't know.
We can go over all the different effects at the end once we get to the stat charts. But for now, we'll just keep going with the activities.
Yeah, good idea.
So then the first activity, after the Whack-A-Goblin, there's the bobbing for fruit activity. Where
pretty classic fall festival activity.
It gets gross if you don't change the water regularly, though.
Who would? It's face soup.
But you don't just get regular fruit. You get magically charged fruit that has different abilities, much like the candy. And I think our parties actually used some of this fruit in their actual main campaign.
I feel like it was something yellow. Lemon or banana or something.
I think.
Yeah, it was something yellow. I just remember it was yellow.
Then we have Dunk the Dwarf. Specifically, the dwarf in question's name is Dunk, so it's not just the title of the activity.
You seen that episode of, you've seen it, Gravity Falls, where Grunkle Stan is just like yelling at people and like, you can't dunk me.
Oh yeah, that's the Fun Festival episode. I remember that. And then someone actually does dunk it and he's like, well, crap.
It was kind of like that. That was kind of how you played it. It was very fun.
I actually just got done watching it, I think, after that point. Like, I had just recently gotten off of it.
Yeah, I need to watch season 2 still. But anyways, back to the stuff, to the things.
And then there was the Whack-A-Goblin, as you said. And then there was a couple of shops where they could just buy miscellaneous and disposable magic items. None of these magic items did anything to enhance the player's skills. It just gave them some fun little visual effects.
Man, if I had been playing with it, I would definitely have gotten the thing that makes your head turn invisible.
Yes. There's one that makes your head turn invisible. There's one that makes it look like you're covered in spiders.
Yeah, I was like, head turn invisible? That's better than any mask. If I'd been playing a rogue or something, there's no way I could have passed up the invisible head.
Oh, now that I think about it, that would be a good tool for a criminal.
I know, right?
It's like better than any ski mask.
When the sequel comes around, I don't, if it's in the same continuity with the same characters, I doubt Drizzt would want to be around, but
he'd be
a rogue would be it'd be so good to play a rogue in that just to get that missing head.
It's a good time. So after the players have eaten, or should have eaten, as much candy as they want and played all the games, the Gourd Horde shows up, which is suddenly the sky starts turning from a bright orange to a more purplish hue, and some zombified pumpkin people show up.
I love those. I think I just love Halloween-y creatures like that. You know I'm a big monster guy. You know, Universal Monsters and Cronenberg and all that stuff. That's all me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a case where the body itself is not animated, but it's the vines and the pumpkin that is controlling everything is.
Yeah.
It's a really unique looking monster. I love it. But the party is attacked by a couple of regular pumpkins, and I say regular because we'll see some variants here in a minute. And they're not too difficult to deal with, even with a horde of 5, which I believe is what the let's see. Yeah, it's about 5. They're really easy to deal with. Their immunities and vulnerabilities are really easy to determine because they're undead plant creatures.
Yeah, they're planty.
And plus, zombies are always a good starting enemy for players in general.
Our group was all about the fire in this one shot. But yeah, the first batch isn't what's hard to beat. It's when you get into the bar, the tavern.
Yeah, and so this is where we get into the siege at the Four Shadows. Now, it specifically says that as soon as the players enter, the front door is slammed shut and a bolt is slid across. The room is now bustling with people, and the bar from the outside is just getting surrounded. Like, there's more gourd hordes out there, and the party has about 5 minutes to come up with a plan of reinforcing and defending itself. So each player gets one job that they can take command of their choosing. Whether that's securing the non-combatants in a certain part of the bar, reinforcing the windows, preparing magical defenses, whatever. They have 5 minutes to do whatever they think would best help the situation. And then after that, it is nothing but 10 rounds of pure combat.
It was long. It was pretty long.
I think the one gripe that our players had with this was that this actually did run for very long. And the only reason why I didn't have it last shorter was because the books, or this module specifically says that after 10 rounds.
Yeah, that was really the only gripe our players had was that by the end of that, they were like, ugh, we want to fight the boss.
So I might say, maybe reduce it to about 7 or 8 rounds. Don't necessarily go through all 10 unless your party's just a glutton for combat.
If you have a party that's real into combat, like that's probably totally fine is 10. Our party is more of a roleplay party. We only have one character that's like a heavy combat guy. But everyone else is very much a role player.
Indeed. And so with this siege, you also get a couple of variants with the pumpkins, including plumpkins, which are basically boomers from Left 4 Dead. They are these bloated corpses with pumpkin heads and vines that will explode on players, dealing poison damage if they don't succeed on a Constitution saving throw.
Splody boys.
You have jumpkins, which are basically pumpkins with unusually long viney arms and allow them to close the gap between their prey faster. They have long jump and grapple abilities. And then you have munchkins, which are not a single pumpkin, but rather a group of 5 or more pumpkin heads, basically, that just jump around, chatter, and try to bite things. And as long as you're able to kill the majority of them, you can pretty much defeat the enemy. Like a single pumpkin on their own, you can just punt at a wall and it'll be dead.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a nice little variety with the enemies. Good time. And once the players, either the players die or they succeed in holding off the siege. And after this begins our next part, the grave mistake. So, as the final pumpkin falls to the ground, an eerie silence falls over the Four Shadows. Slowly, people move out of the corners of the room, and return from upstairs. A few people start tossing the vine-wrapped bodies outdoors. People start talking more and more, discussing the tale of the lanterns and wondering whose lanterns was not out at midnight. Sheepishly, some children come forward and say that they took the lanterns from the front of the tavern. Silence falls again as the truth of the situation becomes clear to everyone. The tale is real and an evil force is out for revenge. So, going back, it's very important to pay attention during that initial exposit of lore. Again, so
if you can, honestly, the players could even try to stop the kids, but why would you? You want to fight the boss, right? That's the whole point.
Yeah. So Mira encourages the protagonists, the parties, the players, to solve their problem by vanquishing the evil causing their plight. And in order to do this, she tells them that the source of it is most likely going to be from the nearby cemetery. And this is confirmed by the players heading that way, and they see this massive spiral of purple smoke entering the sky from that direction. But Mira tells them that the fastest way to the cemetery is through a hedge maze that has been grown to celebrate this festival.
And it's got pumpkins in it they can fight, and if they take wrong turns, they have to fight even more pumpkins. But our players were just like, let's burn it down.
And I figured, it's made of grass. The enemies are plant-based. And we spent a ton of time in that siege. So it was a good
call. It was a good call, so you gave it to them. And, fair's fair, smart's smart,
In some famous rap song, or in the famous words of some rap song, I'm sure, let's burn this thing down.
Oh, yeah. So I can't... God, that was cringy, dude. So we can't really speak to the maze because they just burned it down. But, that was the part that we didn't personally get to experience. But if you look at a map of the maze, it's a pretty simple maze.
It's only got 4 wrong turns, and it's all just... It's so simple.
Yeah, but, they can't look at the map, which is what makes it, a bit more difficult. You probably got, a 50-50 shot on really taking any wrong turns. It's very simple. They just need to think before they turn. And most mazes can all be solved the same way, so it's fine.
Even if you took all the enemies out, they would have gotten through it in about 2 minutes. So the enemies are just there for padding.
Not 2 minutes exactly. It's a bit of hyperbole, but quickly,
So once the players make their way through the maze, they then encounter our final act, the Reckoning. So before you is a normal-looking graveyard, a few papercraft ghosts, and some lit jack-o'-lanterns decorate the area. What's less normal is the enormous swirling vortex of mist and cloud that comes to point in the center of the graveyard. As you watch, a being starts to materialize amongst the orange and purple fog. The being takes the form of a pumpkin, but not just any pumpkin. He is wearing a ragged suit, and atop his head is a worn top hat. A booming voice echoes throughout the graveyard. Eyes glow bright with every word. Good evening, my name is Jack. Yeah, so it's just Jack.
Are you waiting on me to say something? I'm sorry.
No, it's just Jack Skellington in his pumpkin form.
Pretty much. Jack is a pretty common Halloween-y name, all things considered. But yeah, I thought he was cool. He's absolutely the type of villain I would write, to be completely... I really like just charming villains who are also creepy looking. Yeah, that's very my style.
So Jack's story is that he was basically a necromancer before Hallow's End was even a holiday. And he performed a ritual to try and gain eternal life, but he basically wound up binding his soul to the town. The veil between the material plane and the astral plane is thin here, and on each night of the year, on this night each year, he can pass through it without any issue. So he basically just wants to come back and terrorize people once a year. He has the ability to raise the dead, but not on any other night where this veil between the different planes is thin. The lantern lights and people's faith do keep him out of the village. And his main goal is that he wants to return to the living world. But if he can't, then they'll just have to bring people back to the dead world with him.
Yeah, and that's neither of those is okay. So you gotta fight. He's kind of tough, but I feel like it was actually pretty balanced for our party at the time. What level is this for? Do you remember what tier this is?
I think it's like 1, 2. I'll check.
Because I don't remember. You're the one with the PDF in front of you.
This is an adventure. 2 to 5 players will visit a Halloween theme for levels 1 through 7.
That's about what I figured, yeah.
So it wasn't too terribly difficult. I think our party was like level 4, level 5. Somewhere around there, maybe level 3.
Something like that.
We started level 3 we started Baldur's Gate. I want to say we were at level 4.
It was between, I think we played this between the Dungeon of the Dead 3 and the Vanthapur Manor.
We did.
Yeah.
So that would have been around level 4.
Yeah, having it on you can just have it on the outskirts of whatever city you're playing in, or if you're in a small town, We just had it on the outskirts of Baldur's Gate. Or whatever.
But Jack has a unique list of abilities, including some legendary actions. He has a cane and some rather nasty, gnarly pumpkin claws, I guess if you want to call them. They're called grasping hands that deals necrotic damage. And he can make 2 attacks with these as he sees fit. His legendary actions include a Shroud of Darkness, which is just magical darkness that obscures the vision, a Pump Spring, in which he can resurrect 2 pumpkins to life of any kind, and then Pump King, which Jack can convert a pumpkin inside into a special pumpkin of his choosing. So not too terrible. He's even listed as a challenge rating 4, so it was a pretty balanced fight. With a rather unique Dandyman flair to it.
Yeah, and of course, after the party defeats him, there will be even more reason to celebrate. Our party got rewarded at the end with some lifetime passes.
And I think they got like free drinks for the night or something.
I think they already had free drinks for the night because they bought the big fancy passes.
Yeah.
They bought the fancy passes that meant they got stuff for free, and then they wouldn't take anything. It was like, why did you buy the passes to get free stuff if you weren't going to take any of it? You spent more on those passes. It's whatever. But it was a very fun one-shot. It can be super, super easily worked into your ongoing campaign if you want a Halloween or Day of the Dead type special. You can probably play it anytime, honestly, because if you have people who are really into D&D, they're probably already really into monsters and spooky stuff and spirits,
Yeah.
So you can probably play it anytime, but it'll have the most impact on Halloween since it is obviously a mirror of that real-world holiday. It's got cool art. It's very cheap. What was it, like $3 USD or something?
Yeah, it was pretty inexpensive.
It was like $5 or no way it was more than $5.
It was definitely worth my money. I'll say that. For the people who made this campaign, top-notch job.
Our group loved it. They still want a sequel.
They're not paying us to say this, by the way. This is our genuine opinions.
No, but if anyone does want to pay us to say nice things about our thing, just tell us. We'll have to disclose it. But yeah, just send us the adventures and we'll play them eventually. But that is it for our review of Hallow's End. So you can definitely check that out. Get it for digital download. I had been seeing, when Halloween was coming up, I'd actually been seeing ads for it, and then KeoCat apparently also saw an ad for it and was like, let's play this. So I think she's the main reason we played it, actually. But it was very fun. Very, very fun. And since they give you lifetime passes at the end, it kind of gives you an excuse to go back if your players really like it. Or if not, then they kind of get stiffed. I actually do kind of recommend putting it into an ongoing campaign so that those passes can maybe eventually be used. Because if it's not in an ongoing campaign and you just play it as a one shot, those passes will go unused. Just they will. But it's very, very fun. It's very creative, very Halloween. And that's really all we have to say. I know it was supposed to be an episode of Karen's campaign for today, but we ended up having to do this. That session had to be postponed. But we are going to do it next time, more than likely. So That's it. Thank you all once again for your support. Remember to, give us some good ratings and stuff. And there's also links in the description, or you can check out eBay for our merch, and you can check us out on Patreon and all kinds of other fun things. Facebook, our YouTube channel, where we do lots of gaming unboxings and videos and stuff. And that's it. Thank you all once again for your support, and we'll see you all next time. Ooh.